Set, all right. Let's call to order meeting of the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission for Monday, December 19th. On to item 1, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion been made.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2, approval of the minutes from the October 17th, 2016 Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Initial requests, consideration with possible actions on the request by Alderman Duane for left turn signal on southbound Alpine Drive at East Mason Street and to furnish the relative crash reports.
I think before I state anything in this, see we have the Alderman.
There we go.
Chair
Okay,
and
thank you.
District Party, maybe
Yeah.
you want to speak first.
Well, what this is on Alpine, it gets difficult at times, and during the day, you get traffic, and if you're going south on Alpine, or north on Alpine, oftentimes you're sitting there for a long time to be able to turn. And sometimes, and it's not that for a person to go through the red light because they're sitting there too long. They're thinking there's something wrong. And it happens more frequently than you think. And so a couple of my constituents and Ed have asked to, I brought this forward a couple times, by the way. And so I wanted them to let you know what's going on. I mean, we've done studies and we showed maybe extending the time for a left-hand turn. But periodically, we've had some crashes when they said they didn't think it was going to turn. And they pulled out and tried to quick beat the traffic. And it's fast there, it's 40 miles an hour. They're coming off the highway and they're trying to get downtown or whatever it is. And so I'm looking to see if we can somehow deal with that. And that's what the communication is brought forward.
Okay. Thank you. You had somebody that wants to speak? Do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just give your name.
One
and address
motion.
and,
Just one second, sir.
Motion open the floor.
Motion been made, open the floor, and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, okay. If you want to maybe come up to the microphone. And
Sure.
Name and address,
Yeah.
please, sir.
Yeah, I'm Edward Jensen. I live at 541 Alpine Drive. I'm more concerned not about turning south, but it's if you're traveling on Mason Street and you want to turn into Alpine, either way, going north or south, and you're on Mason Street, that's what I'm concerned about. I know that coming from Alpine and wanting to make a left turn to say head out to I-43, that traffic does back up. And there has been an adjustment made as far as extending the time on that light just for that direction to, allow people to make that left turn. But I'm concerned about if I'm coming up from Mason Street, from say down at the East Town Mall, and I want to turn onto my street to go up towards Edison School there, I don't get a signal unless, from what I understand from Dave Hansen, there has to be 2 vehicles to trigger the left turn signals for both directions on Mason Street. But if you're sitting there and the light is already red and you come up to that intersection, you don't get an arrow. All these cars coming from Mason Street heading into town, want to get going 40 miles, get up to 40 miles an hour. Okay, you can't see because of the crest of that hill. And then if you do get a car that wants to make a left turn, now you can't see at all. There's traffic that's coming down over that hill, and they're doing 40 miles an hour, the light's green. But if I had an arrow at the beginning of the light change, even for one car, that car could get out of there, and possibly 2 cars. But if it takes 2 cars to trigger that light, then you're stuck there. And in comparison, I point to another intersection that I travel through at night on my way to work. At 10:35, I can go on Mason Street to Limekiln Road, and that intersection has a left turn signal every light change, and there's nobody there to make a left turn. So I would request the same type of action at this intersection. Should always have a left turn signal, regardless if there's a car there or not then. They can have it at Limekiln Road. But that's my concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Motion return to regular order.
Second.
Oh,
No, I just want to, I have.
just hold on one second, Tom. So motion to go back to normal
Yeah.
business.
Regular
Second,
business.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, just to be official, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to apologize because I've had more than one person ask for what I had just asked for. And that's what I thought Mr. Jansen was bringing forward. But I travel on, I live right down there, obviously. And my wife will not even come to that intersection because of how hard it is to turn. You're there for the entire section until you want to go through the yellow when it finally turns. If there's cars coming, because there's big cars, you cannot see, and they're going so fast. So now, I understand what he's saying, so I would like to actually see both, because it is, and I don't think, Dave, would it be that much to just put that left turn arrow there full-time? I mean,
What do you mean by too much? You know, cost or what?
no, it would be, yeah, cost,
There would definitely have to be modifications done to the signal. If I could,
Go ahead.
I think an explanation of the actual operations of the signal, I think it probably is a good time to do that. So, the signal itself, as we know, Mason is east and west here. We heard 40-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. And Alpine Drive is the minor street here, less traffic, although busy at times due to school traffic and morning and PM peak, with a posted speed of 25. So the signal operates on what we call it's a three-phase operation, and the left turns are protected permissive, meaning that there is a green arrow, yellow arrow, and then it goes to circular green, and that's for the through traffic on Mason Street. So that will be in a leading position in the operation, meaning that if there is a call, and Mr. Jensen's correct, he and I had spoken on this, and he'd already mentioned about the second car back detection for the left turn. So if there's two or more cars in the left turn lane, then it will actuate that movement. So that has to happen before the onset of yellow on the side street in order for that to happen. So, you know, vehicles waiting to queued up. The reason that we do second car back detection is that for the efficiency of the intersection. Basically, if it's just one vehicle all the time, especially during peak hours, it degrades the efficiency of the intersection just to service one vehicle. And that is why we have a yellow and an all red clearance phase that we program into our signals, that if indeed there is just one vehicle, those people go into the intersection, you know, as we all do, we creep into the intersection, you wait for it to go yellow, and then that's when you make your permissive move once you see the opposing traffic come to a stop. So that's the primary reason that we do that. We've been doing that, certainly precedes me being here as a traffic engineer. So, you know, I know Mr. Pierlot, that was his practice as well, and I believe Mark Weiner. And we've just continued to maintain that throughout the city for those purposes. In the case that we would have safety issues or safety concerns or safety problems, then we would consider going to a first car detection type of operation. So if indeed the reports would show that we have a significant left turn crash issue for reasons that were stated, that you know, it's hard to judge the speed of the oncoming vehicles. There could be occlusion from a opposing left turn movement that you just can't see around it, and other things. Then we would look at other measures. First car detection would be one of the options, but typically when you have that, and I know we've had discussions, military and bond, I believe it was, where this was brought up. It's not necessarily just going first car detection that's going to solve these issues. Typically when you start looking into the details of these crash reports, you find out that the majority of these crashes are actually taking place not during the protected phase, it's during the permissive phase. So you could have first car detection, and if your crash reports are showing it now with second car, you put first car detection. My presumption, educated guess, my experience tells me that you are probably not going to have a significant reduction in that type of crash. That the primary way to solve a problem like that, if we uncover crashes, would be to go to a protected only left turn, meaning that you have a green arrow, a yellow arrow, and then a solid red, meaning that if you want to take a left, you can only take it during that left turn phase. During the circular green, you are not permitted to make that movement. An example of some of that phasing would be at Military and Mason Street, Military Shawano, where we have those protected movements in place. Those are in place for different reasons. Those are because we have dual left turns, and anytime you have 2 or more left turn lanes at a signalized intersection, they shall run as protected permissive, or protected only, sorry. So that being said, looking at the request itself, I don't know what the results of the crash reports would be. To be quite frank, I've got about 19 other studies in front of this right now that I'm working on. If indeed this will be referred to staff for study, we would look at the crash history and do a full depth crash analysis to determine if indeed a left turn crash problem exists, and if it does exist, what would those countermeasures be?
Is this loop detected or?
Yes.
Okay. Is the loop measured 2 cars back from the stop bar or from the ped crossing?
Stop bar typically.
Because just like that first car is pulled over the stop line,
Mm-hmm.
if it was like just 1 car link back and the first car pulls way up to the crosswalk, they're not sitting on top of the loop.
I'm not sure if it's this or Challenger. I know I installed a stop here
That's what I was wondering.
sign because of that very condition you're talking
That was
about.
Challenger you pulled at.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's a
don't
no
know about
left,
that one.
yeah. Yeah, if you go up, you go past the interstate and you go one intersection basically opposite this. I remember we had a similar issue to that where I ended up putting a stop here on red sign. I mean, in essence, that's what a stop bar is, so people should be stopping at a stop bar. But that's just more extra emphasis for that. So.
Ask a question.
And actually, I wanted to address one other statement too that I heard from Mr. Jensen regarding the intersection of Mason and Limekiln. Not all of our signals are brought up to what I call smart signal standards or technology. This one here is more of a hybrid. This was, it's a newer signal than Mason and Limekiln. And Mason and Limekiln still operates as a pre-timed traffic signal. There is no detection there. So those phases come up all the time simply because the actuation detection system is not in place. Never was constructed. It was constructed prior to either that technology being there or that the city just wasn't funding it. So that's the primary difference, and I just wanted to address that question for you. But Barb, you had a question?
Yeah, the question I have is it only in response to crashes that we would change something? Are there other reasons that we would change a signal?
There's various reasons to change signals for, specific movements, approaches, etc. I mean, the bottom line is, we want to have them run efficiently and safely. Those are always our bottom line. Safety sometimes that is a subjective term. Us as engineers need to not look at subjectiveness, we need to look at the objective part of this, and we have to look at crash data to determine whether or not there is a problem. And that's how we have to make our decisions. So in a case like this, I wouldn't just go ahead and start making modifications to the signal. I would definitely look to see if there is an issue. One thing that Mr. Jensen stated that I think would probably be a good thing to at least document would be what is that sight distance? There's a crest of that curve or the hill approaching the interstate. If that does not match, what I would say would be proper design intersection distance, then we could right there have justification to go to some other method of operation for that left turn.
Do you have any crash reports there, Dave?
I do not
No,
know.
but, okay, so,
I looked that up just for year-to-date
well,
this afternoon. There were 5 accidents out there since the beginning of the year. I didn't get a chance to look at
There's pretty many.
particulars.
would that be making a left turn on Alpine or just
Total
at that
total
intersection?
for the intersection
Okay.
was 5.
All right, yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, I don't think we can act on his request because that wasn't what the request
does.
was.
Yeah, that was my fault. That's what, because we went through this before, I put the same communication in, and I'm not so worried about that because he did extend the time. But I am concerned about this, and I talked to Dave about it because this is extremely toughest area in Green Bay to try to take a left turn. I mean,
Right.
because of you can't see, even if it's a car, the way it's set up, you can't. And 40 miles an hour, it's turning yellow and even red, and they're still plowing through that intersection every single day. I sat there and monitored it one day, we were there one time, and they just kept coming through. I mean, it was literally red, and you still try to get 2 or 3 cars coming through to get through there. I mean, it's very difficult. I've sat there probably in my, without exaggerating, at least 4 times where I didn't make a left turn because it just kept coming, and by the time it was just solid red, and I just had to wait for the next opportunity. It's that tough.
But I don't think we can act on his request because it wasn't on the
Well, we
agenda.
could-
And
I'm
that we can
thinking-
refer it to study.
To
You
Refer to
refer to
staff.
study and change it,
Refer to
Right.
staff as for study.
yeah.
Right. So that's what
Well,
I
you
was,
could have 2 motions, really, because in order to put the other one to rest, you could have a 2-part motion and receive and place on file the initial request and then
Right.
refer to staff for study for the other one.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
That sound good, Alderman Dwayne?
Yeah, that's perfect,
Okay.
and this is all on me. I
that's
misunderstood,
fine.
I misunderstood Mr.
That's fine.
Jansen. We were talking about it because I had 2 other calls on the same thing, that they were saying they can't get through on, but they did extend it to a period where they should be able to get through, but some of the people are more, it's a district where you have a lot more elderly people, and they're not as quick as just going with the flow. So he did extend that part, but the other part, even, for anybody to drive up down there.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's one that should be studied, so. I heard a motion to refer to staff.
And there was a second.
Second,
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, so we'll probably be on the next traffic, or is there a timetable we should look at? Can you email me with something when you get it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Then I'll email you.
if this is something that's
Is
relatively
that
easy
okay?
to kick out, I think we should be able to do
Thanks.
that.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Item 4,
Yep, so now it
consideration
looks like we're gonna get something.
consideration with possible action on the request by the traffic engineer
Yep.
to modify the parking regulations on the west side of Washington Street between Walnut and Cherry.
Okay, so this is the downtown intersection, just 2 blocks from where we're located tonight. As you can see from this aerial image, this is former Nicolay parking lot. And now the Metro apartments or building development is now in place, and there are people moving in and are living there at this point in time. Next, I'm going to bring up a map showing the proposal for this area. As you know, and as we've heard over last probably good 4 to 5 years, I would even say, since downtown redevelopment started really taking off, one of the issues, concerns, requests that we get from the downtown business owners and those that are living downtown now are that there needs to be better accommodations for loading. And this is really no different. This is just a newer development on a different block. We had it with City Deck Landing, River Loft Apartments, all of these developments. One thing that's very much in common with all of them is that they have move-ins, they have move-outs, they have service, they have deliveries, etc. Right across the street from here, we have now, some of the businesses are starting to populate in the lower level of the Cherry Street ramp. And with all that said, the need for the parking or the loading area. So what my proposal is to create a no parking here to corner zone in order to preserve the right turn movement southbound at the intersection. Create this no parking 30-minute loading zone that's going to accommodate them, the requesters. And then ultimately, when the time is needed, then we'll just put the meters in, which is our downtown standard in any area where we don't have a special signed zone, it's metered parking. So with that being said, my recommendation is to remove what we have existing in there, which really is just a longer no parking here to corner zone. And currently right now, there is a 1-hour reserved Nicolay Bank office, customer only 7 to 6 Monday through Friday zone. That's in this approximate area. That was just a temporary agreement for them until the Metro was built and that underground parking was made available. And now with development and construction being completed, that is available for their customers. So there is no more need to have that on the street. So, which is why the next best type of zone here would be for that loading area.
Okay, there a motion? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration with possible action on the request by the Public Works Department Parking Division to delete Green Bay Municipal Code 29-202, Class A parking violation, parking in prohibited ramp spaces due to duplication in Section 29-204, Class C parking violations, parked in prohibited ramp spaces.
Yeah, this really looked more like just a Scrivener's error, and there's actually, it's in there twice. The way that it has been enforced by Parking Division is the $35 fine for the infraction. So in essence, City Ordinance 29.202 sub 5 is one that needs to be deleted to eliminate the conflict and the error. So it's just something that the Parking Division uncovered and asked that I do some cleanup here.
Okay.
So
We hear a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 6, I referred back from study 6, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Wary on behalf of the Western Corridor Neighborhood Association to install a flashing yellow light at the intersection of Western Oneida Street or in any other way address safety concerns at this intersection.
Okay, well, I handed out a 12-page report that summarized the safety study. There's really a twofold purpose for this. It was a safety review of the intersection itself, and then also to address the request for flashing lights. And as you know, we have already gone through this a number of times, and it was more, I think, at a cursory level, just to summarize it, but seeing how Common Council on September 20th referred this back to this commission, I felt it was proper to put together an in-depth analysis to determine exactly if and what is going on at the intersection, and if there would be any recommendations to mitigate any issues that I found. So I think we all know the existing site. It's real close to our west side garage, the intersection being Oneida Street at Western Avenue. The intersection operates as a two-way stop, so the north-south movement of Oneida Street maintains uncontrolled through the intersection, and then the stop control is on the side street of Western. This figure 2B, showing the neighborhood view, I think gives you some idea of its context. You can see coming in on the northwest quadrant of this intersection is the Ben Endiger Trail, or the west, which is part of the West Side Trail. This is actually its southern terminus. This right here shows the, as we call it, the Laura Lane parking lot for the West Side Garage. This is employee parking, and this is also the West Side Garage itself. To the south, this is Laura Lane, and again, there's the parking lot shown here. This is actually closed off now. Actually, no, this one's, there's one that's Salter that's closed off. This one's still active. This is actually a sporting field here for Franklin, and then this is the driveway, the east-west driveway to Franklin. And as you can see, there's residential, multifamily that surrounds this area. This section here, the report more or less goes over the function of the road, status of the road, given some of its history. It was actually reconstructed, Oneida Street that is, in 2006. As a matter of fact, that was the year I started, and I remember working on this project. And the limits were from West Mason Street to Badger Street. At the time, and some of you may remember, there used to be a, well, you can even see from this, that this was a former railroad corridor. Some of the grade issues at the time were corrected as part of that 2006 project. So as you approach the intersection, it feels standard, and there's really not much evidence of a former crossing that was at that location. For Oneida Street, I'm going over some of the details of basically one lane in each direction. You have a two-way center turn lane, and then at the intersection itself, you have dedicated left turn only lanes. For Western Avenue, it more or less functions as one lane that approaches a stop condition, so left through right. It is a little bit wider so that if someone in a standard vehicle wants to take a right, I call it a de facto right, where you can get around that person that's either going to go through or left, and then you can take a right. So it is wide enough for two lanes, but it really functions Sometimes if it's, there's larger vehicles there, that it's usually just one lane for the approach. We have all the standard markings that you would see in an area. And as part of that reconstruction, again, from 10 years ago, everything was really brought up to standard, with signing and marking at the location. 25 miles an hour is the posted speed limit on all approaches. We have street lighting that exists along both corridors. We have sidewalks, we have crosswalks at the intersection. There is no Green Bay Metro Transit bus routes here, so really you're just seeing pretty much just standard motor vehicles, not really any truck traffic through here, with the exception of the West Side Garage and our operations type of vehicles. So the photos here, I think, really kind of tell you everything. This right here is the cell phone movement approaching the intersection. And like even with the winter conditions, you can really defines where those lane lines are. This is actually northbound, so opposite of that. This is the eastbound movement looking to the north. The thing I'll point out in these next few pictures here is the adequate sight lines, and you can see for hundreds and hundreds of feet, which is a good thing. You'll see we get the stop condition. We do have this black on white sign here that 4 lines of text, kind of a lot of information for people to just have to sit and read, basically stating that on 9th Street traffic doesn't stop. We had that sign, that's actually more of a, we left that in, or we put that up right after the construction of that project, because during the construction it actually was a temporary 4-way stop, just because how confusing in the staging of the project we needed to do that. Looking the other direction, you can see again clear sight lines. This is approaching eastbound, so you can see the stop condition. And the one thing you'll notice too with that white supplemental sign, and you'll see that on this one too, it is winter obviously, but it is somewhat blending in, I think, in the background. Looking here again, here's from the other direction, westbound, looking north. Again, you can see clear sight lines, and the same thing, westbound looking south. So the intersection is pretty wide open. So now to crashes and safety. I conducted a standard 5-year crash history of the intersection, starting in 2012 and going through current time, counting the year 2016 as a full year, seeing how it's December right now. You can see I'm showing reportables, which would be what are filled out on our NV 4000, and usually consists of a property damage of what is greater than 1,000 and a potential injury or worse.
Correct.
So you'll see at the end here, we had a total of 7 reportables, 7 non-reportables over the 5-year period. Under injuries, I'm showing this as possible and possible. That means it was classified as a type C injury, meaning a possible injury. I'm going to presume that means that there was no confirmed, and maybe someone complained of something aching, or maybe a minor cut or laceration. No fatalities. You can read through the details in the comments here. One thing you'll notice real quickly is that, especially if you look at the key in some of my acronyms, see a lot of FTY, RW, meaning failure to yield right away. And the further that you look, like at table 2, you will see that this is all over the place. There really wasn't a good defined pattern of that, other than you're getting this 2-way stop traffic, and they're either entering the intersection and getting hit by someone northbound, southbound, or it's the other way around, where there's northbound, southbound traffic, and then they end up striking them. So it really happened from a lot of different directions. Looking at the crash averages and the crash rates, starting in 2012, you can see the number of crashes. So we had 2 and 12, 2 and 13, 5 and 14, 4 and 15, and 1 this year. So the 5-year average is just under 3, so 2.8 crashes per year. What I did is I calculated what we call a 3-year rolling average. So you go 2012, 13, and 14 and come up with an average. So the 3-year rolling is 3.0, 3.7, and 3.3 for the current year, 3-year rolling. kind of breaking it down into a 2-year rolling, it kind of gets a little more defined. You can see 2.0, 3.5, 4.5, 2.5. Looking at the overall crash rate for the study period is 0.59, so that's relatively low. Once we start looking at 0.8, 0.9, anything 1 or above, that's when we start saying, is there something more going on here that we might want to address? So the overall 5-year crash rate was relatively low. And then I did break it down into each crash year. So as you look here, 2014 was the peak year that we had, by the most issues. The interesting thing about 2014, if you look up here, is that a majority of them were failure to yield right away, eastbound striking some other movements I get here. Eastbound striking southbound, which ended up striking a northbound left. Here's an eastbound striking a northbound through. Eastbound striking a southbound through. Eastbound striking a northbound left. Every one of the 5, 4 of them were eastbound. But that was the only year. Other than that, it seemed to switch up. So I was trying to think of, was there any sort of other construction activity or anything special that would have changed any of the traffic patterns around in that year? And I honestly could not come up with anything. We didn't have any major reconstruction projects on the west side. And in 2014, actually, our major construction project was here downtown with Monroe Avenue. Breaking down the injuries, crash types, and factors. As you can see, type A, which is the worst, we had a 0, which would be incapacitating. We had no non-incapacitating. 2 possible, and would be no apparent injuries. So it's 2 would be impossible. Looking at the crash types, the predominant type was right angle with 9. We had rear end, there was 2 crashes, and head on were 3. And the head on were more or less, someone say southbound coming, there's a northbound left, and then they strike them. Really kind of no different than the last item that we talked about at Mason and Alpine, that crash. So very clear the driver factor here was failure to yield. This is literally right off the police report that the officer's opinion probable cause here. So that is the predominant item. So I really, in the next few paragraphs, really just summarize kind of what I was talking about. Here's some things that I didn't point out yet. There were no bicycle or pedestrian crashes at all over the five-year study period. 2 out of the 14 crashes occurred at nighttime. So these are all daytime crashes that are pretty much happening here. All but 3 of the 14 crashes took place between the months of October through March, so you're quarter 4 through quarter 1. So you're talking fall, winter, when the sun was in probably a different part of the sky. 2/3 of the crashes took place in February, October, and December. 10 of the 14 crashes took place on either a Monday or Tuesday, so I thought that was kind of an anomaly too, that Monday, Tuesday was a very unpopular day if you were at this intersection.
I don't get that one.
Yeah, but yeah, you look for patterns, and so those finding that day, just those 2 days were just not really good. Looking at some information that was brought forward when this was here at Traffic Commission in August was that there was a statement from the Western Corridor Neighborhood Association that 3 kids were hit at Western Oneida this school year, but based off the review of the traffic reports, I could not find that crash. So undocumented, hearsay, I don't know, but it didn't show up in the study. So I have a number of conclusions here. So I think it's very obvious to see the pattern of failure to yield was the primary factor here. Now, being a 2-way stop and being right angle crashes, pretty much just saying that we need to somehow increase the conspicuity that this is a 2-way stop condition. So looking at what we have out there, I made mention of that supplemental sign that we had up there right after we opened it up from 2006 traffic. At that time, the state only allowed us to use a black on white regulatory type background on that sign, but the latest edition of the MVTCD and the state supplement to that actually does not have that requirement in there anymore, and actually the Federal Highway Administration recommends having a yellow background on it. So if you look back up at these pictures, and again, I know the snow is probably somewhat enhancing this, how this kind of blends in, but it does. And you look at this, you see the red, and you don't really see any white. And with those crashes that are occurring in December and in February, I'm thinking these are wintertime crashes, and maybe that sign's not popping out. So with that being said, and now that we have the ability to change up the design of that sign, I'm actually recommending that we replace that with a black on yellow sign that looks similar to this. Instead of 4 lines of text, we're gonna have 2 lines of text, make it a little bit easier. It's gonna be a little bit larger of a sign. I think it's a 12 by 24, and swapping that out. I think it'll pop a lot better, and should have some impact on reducing, on the stops, especially when I can't find any site issues. I mean, that's about as wide open as they come. So, I was a little bit, when you look at the data and you kind of go, what's going on here? Especially when you see, everything else out in the field looks good. So, that's one of my recommendations is to install that sign. And then the other one is, again, I'm going to show you the pictures, is these name of street signs right here. This is actually our older style sign. We use 9-inch blanks on these, and we actually have a white border around them, and that actually kind of makes them stand out a little bit better. And we only have them on one side of the intersection, and on multi-lane facilities, it is actually part of the guidance of the MUTCD is to actually have them on both corners. So although we have single lane in each direction, we also have that 2-way left turn lane, which kind of is like a multi-lane facility, and it's a wider street. It's 42 feet clear roadway width. So, I mean, you could easily restripe it as a 4-lane facility. So it's wide enough to be that. So my second recommendation would be then on the other side of this intersection is to put the name of street signs, larger ones, and with the white background on them. So I think with that and the supplemental sign for drawing attention to the 2-way stop, I think that should have an impact on reducing the failure to yield type crashes that we're seeing, or at least we did see in 2014. It could have been an anomaly, and if you look at that crash rate, it actually has been going down, and they've been going away. But we've had some warm winters, and maybe 2014. I'm trying to recall back to it if it was a snowier winter, but that could have been maybe one of the factors as well. So with that being said, those are my 2 recommendations for the intersection. With respect to flashing lights, because that was really the second part to it, I didn't see a need to go to that level just yet. I mean, I don't think that we've exhausted any of our standard type of applications to try taking corrective engineering measures with this intersection. Certainly have identified them, and I think that what we're recommending at this point in time should have an effect. If not, this is definitely something that could be revisited in the future. And if anything, it was my understanding just from my recollection of the discussions that the flashing lights were more or less to draw attention to pedestrians crossing, where we didn't see any. There's no bike or ped crashes at this location, which is a good thing. That's a very good thing. We have marked crosswalks. But if there would be any sort of flashing lights ever in the future, it seems to me that we'd have like a blinker stop or something of that nature that just shows that this is a stop condition. But I wouldn't go to that level yet. We haven't exhausted all of our standard measures yet until we go to that.
What size is the stop sign right now? 36 by 36?
No, that's probably going to be
24,
that's probably going to be a 24 by 24 or 30 by 30.
Just for the next step up if this doesn't work.
Right. Normally what we'll do is we'll either upsize or we'll double up on the stop signs. We'll do that, but in a case like this, I think 30 may be the new standard on multi-lane, meeting multi-lane facilities. I'd have to double check, but if need be, we could always upgrade to whatever is a proper standard if it is substandard.
Other questions?
No.
motion for the recommendation of the report.
Okay, motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Termination of trial periods, 7 through 8. We need to talk on them, Dave, or are they working out?
Let's see here, is it number 8 or?
7's the first one.
I'm not seeing number 7 in my list here. Agenda. Oh, I do have it, it's just listed as the wrong number in here. So, we're talking the same ones. Okay, so removing the 15-minute parking, 77 Monday through Friday, Broadway. Yeah, this one was that location by Jake's Pizza. And there was that one 15-minute loading that was antiquated, and, you know, there was a different store there at the time, so, you know, with the current land use, it didn't match, so that's gone. I've gone by there multiple times. It's being used by all the other people up enjoying the 2-hour zone, so I think that that's acceptable. It's working just fine. And then this number 8 was the Alderman Stoyer item for one-way yield park at Bond. If you recall, Bond Street, the east-west through street and Park Street teed in, and its southern terminus was at Bond Street. And there was, I believe, we had a kind of a slight intersection site issue. They're relatively open, but I think it was one direction that was somewhat compromised. So we made a recommendation for the one-way yield. It seems to be working fine. I haven't heard any pros or cons regarding the item. So, but one-way yields are very typical at T intersections. So I see no reason why not to make a recommendation for items 7 and 8 to be moved to be adopted by ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move 7 and 8 in mass.
Okay, motion been made.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. One last item, next meeting.
Monday the 16th of January, 17th.
Okay,
That work for everybody?
anybody got anything they know of at this point?
Merry Christmas.
Sounds like it'll work then, so, all right.
All right.
With that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all.
Yeah.